So this Goth Baddie killed her boyfriend while they were shooting. Isn't that crazy? But let's see what happened.
A Las Vegas photo shoot turns deadly. A model posing with the gun allegedly shoots and kills her photographer. That model appeared in a Vegas courtroom this week. She reportedly had an obsession with guns.
Oh my God. You gotta stay away from the Goth huzz, bruh. I'm telling you, she got a target mark on her chest. Twin.
Bullseye tattooed on her chest. And according to police, she claims it was an accident. But there could be some evidence that suggests otherwise. We're on the case, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart.
I know her TikToks was jumping. I know her socials jumping, bro.
Of what happened on the set of the movie Rust in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where you have someone who behind the lens loses their life, shot by someone who thought that the gun was unloaded, or that's what they said. Because in this case, that is the argument that the defendant is making. Here is the defendant, 20-year-old Alessandra Blay. She was in a Clark County courtroom this week.
Damn, 20 years old? Bro, people fuck up their lives so early. I'm just like, gang, what the fuck? Even if it was unloaded, why are you pulling the trigger?
In Nevada, we saw with our cameras that she did appear to have tears in her eyes as she sat in the courtroom ahead of her first court appearance. She's now charged with open murder with a deadly weapon. Here's what police say happened as we go back to August 23rd. This is according to Fox 5 in Las Vegas. They reviewed the court documents in Clark County, and they say when police arrived around 5 o'clock in the morning to a home in Las Vegas, they found Mark Gauguin dead on the ground. He had been shot in the neck. Now, this is video of the private TikTok of Alessandra Blay, because she was at the home with Gauguin, who was actually her boyfriend of roughly 6 months, according to police records. Gauguin was a model. He also, that morning, was a photographer. Now, police...
Like, goddamn, like, y'all was together for a while. What the fuck would, like, possess you to kill him?
Say at that home was also another woman and her boyfriend. It was around 4:30 in the morning. They had been drinking, and the two girls who were there decided it was time for a photo shoot. And between 4:30 that morning and 5 o'clock when police arrived, gunshots were fired. Gauguin was hit. He lost his life. Now, the man who called 911 was the boyfriend of the other girl who was involved in this photo shoot, according to police, with Alessandra Blay. Now, the caller said that when he went outside, he saw Gauguin.
So the girl didn't even call the police. It was the boyfriend of the other girl. Like, these hoes don't care, bro. I used to like Goth Baddies. I'm kind of scared.
On the ground, and Blay was the one who allegedly shot him, but she said it was an accident. Police say they found 2 Polaroid pictures from this photo shoot, and those pictures reportedly show Blay holding a gun and the other girl holding a knife. Now, here's where part of this story could draw some comparisons to the Rust movie set case, because Blay claimed that she did not think the gun was loaded. She did not believe that there was a bullet in the chamber. She said the gun was being used as a prop for this impromptu photo shoot. She also...
Okay, but why the fuck are you shooting it, though? Why are you pulling the trigger? You feel me? It doesn't make any sense.
Allegedly admitted to not taking a firearm safety class. So she was saying she doesn't really know how to handle guns or what happened. But this is where it appears there could be more to this story, according to the court documents that Fox 5 in Vegas looked over, because the gun apparently belonged to the man who was calling 911. And he told police that before he fell asleep that night, he took the magazine out. He emptied the chamber and he locked the slide back. So this gun, he says, was empty and it was not armed. Now, his girlfriend reportedly told police that when they were about to do the photo shoot, she noticed that the gun Blay was holding had the magazine in it, that it had been allegedly put back in. Now, on top of that, Blay perhaps did not let on to police just how familiar she was with guns, or maybe how she embraced gun culture. This is a TikTok that shows her photoshopping in guns to her video. Now, law enforcement found...
I'm not gonna lie, that's tough. That's tough as fuck. That's why I was like, I know her social medias are jumping, but it's like, man, you put that shit back in, like you did that on purpose. And that guy's actually smart for taking out the clips or the mag or whatever, but he should have hit it. I think he should have just hit it. But even then, like, you feel me? Do you really have to do all of that? These people are 20 years old. Like,
in a search of her social media accounts, she reportedly often talked about guns online. And she said, quote, "I wish I could shoot people with real guns and get away with it." She also talked about wanting to shoot prostitutes and homeless people, according to police. And there was also a conversation that she had with Gauguin, the victim in this story, where he told her they could go and shoot a dummy. And she allegedly responded, and I quote, "We got to shoot someone real. Going to be the tunnels. If it's only one a night, the police will remain clueless." Blay's court hearing on Tuesday, it was a brief appearance, just her first...
Are you fucking serious, bro? If we shoot one at a time, like... Yo, she on some other shit, like some other stuff.
First in front of a judge, now charged with open murder with a firearm. Blay said she understood the charges that she was facing, and also she was represented by a public defender. She is next expected to be in court for a preliminary hearing on October 2nd. Before we get back to this episode of On the Case, let's talk about something important, because you ever notice how some habits just sneak into your day? .com/law and crime.
And
Trying to sell you them cancer sticks.
It allows the prosecution to charge murder and let the jury or judge decide what type of murder it is. So obviously murder can be first-degree murder, which is premeditated. It can be second-degree murder, which is murder with malice. And of course, there's different types of manslaughter, voluntary or involuntary. And it makes a huge difference, at least under Nevada law. First-degree murder, the premeditated, carries a life sentence. The second degree, you drop down to a minimum of 10 years, and then you start getting to the involuntary manslaughter, you're looking at 4 years. So huge spread there. And really, it allows the prosecution to make their case and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, it's interesting because when you look at this case, and I'll get into the evidence in just a moment, you could see, at face value of what this suspect and now defendant is saying, is that more of a manslaughter, this was an accident, or was it something more than that? How does it work then in court with actually determining what type of murder this is?
So it's really going to be up to the jury if this is a jury case. So in some other states, you'll see lesser included, right? You'll see alternates, right? First degree murder. If the jurors reach that conclusion, they don't look at the other potential charges. Then you look at potential second degree, and then you kind of work your way down. We really saw this a lot in the Cameron Reed case, obviously we covered here on Law and Crime, and there was a lot of lesser includeds, and the jurors were confused. But by charging open, you allow the jurors to really decide, hey, was this premeditated? Was this just an accident? Or was it something that was done with gross negligence or a depraved heart or a malignant mind?
Nah. I'm thinking definitely first degree. Cause she already had the obsession with guns, you feel me? The guy took the mag out, somehow miraculously the mag came back in. Like, it's first degree, bro. Like, she needs life.
We sometimes will use as malice murder. So it allows the jurors to decide really what was this. It's going to be some sort of homicide conviction, but whether it's manslaughter or premeditated, that's going to be up to the finder of fact.
And we'll see what Alessandra Blay, what her defense is. We know a little bit of what she said to police to this point, and then they've looked into her social medias. And when you look at this case and what we know thus far, how would you charge this? What would you see this as if you were a
first degree?
If I'm a juror in this case, or if I'm a prosecutor, I think I would need more for premeditation. Premeditation requires sort of plotting and planning. Obviously, look, whenever anyone's in a romantic relationship and one of them ends up dead, there's always that possibility that it was a premeditated execution. But, if they're just being reckless, playing Russian roulette, something to that effect, that's still second-degree murder. But if it's purely an accident, you don't know the gun was loaded, and it accidentally discharges, that's textbook involuntary manslaughter. You're still criminally liable because you were negligent. But if there was no gross negligence or recklessness, it's just that simple negligence, it's manslaughter. So I would really need to know more. Obviously, law enforcement, they're talking about those social media messages. Did it have anything to do with the death that ensued in this particular case? Is that what they wanted to do, actually shoot and kill someone? Or was this just friends saying something?
I mean, she literally said it, though. She said, let's go out there and shoot people. Is that not before the crime?
Stupid, completely inappropriate and unlawful on social media that didn't necessarily have anything to do with the crime.
And you look at her, her point of view from apparently what she told police. She said that she thought that this was a prop, that she didn't think the gun was loaded, that she didn't think that all of this was just an accident. And my mind kind of went to the Alec Baldwin Rust case. Very different case in a lot of ways, but you have someone behind the lens who ends up getting shot because someone, argued that they didn't know that the gun was going to go off. But to actually prove that in a case like this, where you do have these social media messages that she sent back and forth, the social media that shows that she reportedly had some obsession with firearms, and then the issue of how did the gun end up getting loaded in terms of the magazine going back in when the guy who owned it said that it wasn't when he went to bed. How would you actually be able to prove that if you were the defense?
Well, you really want to look at the witnesses, right? So obviously Baldwin, a unique case, certainly not a murder case. Baldwin was told by Assistant Director Dave Halls that it was a cold gun. Now, Helena Hutchins as an armorer, she was also charged and she was convicted. It's her job to maintain the gun. A little bit of a different case here, but you do have a witness, actually the witness who called 911. So she's going to be very, very important in this case in terms of what exactly happened. So, there's a couple ways that this could go. Obviously, the gun is loaded and you're messing around with it. Well, that's probably murder too, right? That's really reckless. The other would be the opposite extreme, is you believe sincerely that the gun is not loaded and you're using it as a prop, right? Maybe similar to what happened with Baldwin, right? Obviously, in that particular case, the gun was loaded, but he thought it was loaded with blanks. The third possibility is something in the middle where you didn't even check, right? And you're messing around with a gun. You don't know whether it's loaded or not. So I think that would still be criminally reckless, gross negligence, in my opinion. That would also be murder. If you're holding a firearm, you don't even bother to check if it's loaded, and you point it at someone, or you don't point it away from someone. So really, what she knew and when she knew it is going to be very important. And obviously, we know what she's saying, but as far as her friend goes, I think that's going to be a very, very important witness in this case.
And as far as the social media messages, where she had this reported fascination with guns, she even said that, according to the reports, that she wanted to shoot someone, be able to get away with it, and then even said stuff that would be threatening to people who are homeless or work in the sex industry. Those are, people have personas online.
Which is crazy. Like, this hatred for homeless people and for 304s, like, why are you so pressed? Just go do what you want to do. For me, why do you give a fuck so much?
They have opinions online, and that doesn't necessarily cross into the reality of who they are. In a case like this, if you're the prosecution, how do you take what she said online and use that against her in court?
Yeah, you really want to tie it to this crime. Now, I think the defense is going to argue.
She looked good. I'm not going to lie. She's crazy as fuck.
Here's clearly someone who had a fascination with firearms. They're conducting a photo shoot with firearms, right? Now, I think what you want to do is bring that in and just show the sort of causal connection. Obviously, the timing matters. If it's hours before, that's great. If it's years before, not so helpful, right? So you really want to tie it into what happened in this particular case. Obviously, there's been some drinking involved, apparently, too. That sort of cuts both ways. It's not a legal defense. You don't get a walk, but it can be used to help argue some of the intent. So I really think we need to see more to really get to that premeditation. Again, talking about guns, talking about wanting to kill prostitutes or homeless people, that's terrible. That's a little bit different than shooting and killing your boyfriend during a photo shoot. Presumably you're in a relationship, you like that person. Now obviously things can go sideways if there's infidelity or abuse or something else that would cause someone to want to kill their significant other. Again, if I were the defense, and I don't do defense work, but I would argue, as terrible as it is, killing a stranger, a transient, is very different from someone that you're romantically involved with.
What would you expect? Because I know as a prosecutor, you might game plan in your mind about what the defense is going to do at a trial. It doesn't seem like it's really up for debate at this point about whether or not the gun was in her hand and the gun then goes off. But from a defense point of view, what is the outcome that you're actually going for in this case? Because the idea at this point...
Probably involuntary manslaughter, right? Probably just trying to be like, yo, it was a complete accident.
Off without prison time.
Dealing with here, you obviously have a witness, you have an admission to law enforcement that she was the one who shot and killed her boyfriend. So you're not going to be able to argue any type of self-defense or that it was someone else. You really got to attack that intent, do argue that it was an accident and that it was involuntary manslaughter to try to get a lesser sentence. This is a case that it's entirely about mitigation. You're not going to get a walk here.
And going back to the open murder charge she's facing, because there are, I feel like there are some states where there's this debate of like, is it first degree murder? Is it second degree murder? Was there premeditation? Was it not premeditation? Without the open murder type charge in Nevada, how does it typically work in a state like California where you have a case like this?
Exactly. So, I'm in California as well. We have offices in Vegas. We have offices all throughout California. So in California, this would be prosecuted as a lesser included. I don't think, unless we have something more, we would get to that first degree premeditated murder. In California, it's called special circumstances murder that would result in a mandatory life sentence without the possibility of parole. Similar to what the Menendez brothers were facing before they were resentenced. So you would get to second degree murder, which is murder that is not premeditated but is malicious, right? And that's the gross recklessness, the negligence that we talked about. So that would be the top charge. Again, absent some evidence of premeditation that we don't know about. So it would be second degree murder that carries a potential sentence of 25 to life. But then a lesser included sentence, if the jury does not find the defendant guilty of second degree murder, they can consider involuntary manslaughter. And that's someone who is negligent, again, it can be simple negligence, and a death ensues. And kind of the example I like to give between sort of something that might be murder is someone who's driving more than 100 miles an hour, right? The PCH case, Pacific Coast Highway, where the 4 Pepperdine students were killed. That individual is being charged with murder because he was driving at a higher rate of speed. Someone that's under the influence of drugs or alcohol significantly and they kill someone, that's reckless. That's gross negligence. If you happen to be texting and driving, which is still reckless, and you accidentally kill someone, that's probably going to be manslaughter. It's something that's going to be lesser in terms of the negligence that we're dealing with. So a big difference, at least under California law and Nevada as well, when you're dealing with murder and manslaughter.